Many drivers in motorsports are only remembered for their recklessness and inconsistent nature. Drivers like Pastor Maldonado and Mahavir Raghunathan in F1 and F2, drivers like Quinn Houff and Cody Ware in NASCAR, and quite a few others. The thing is, these drivers can range on the talent spectrum from being speedy but woefully inconsistent to just being a completely talentless hack. In IndyCar, not too many drivers fall under the latter category, but without a doubt the topic of today's video is one of the most recklessly inconsistent drivers I've ever seen in IndyCar racing. So welcome back to All IndyCar, the show that looks at the good, bad, and ugly in IndyCar history. Born June 2nd, 1990, Sebastian Saavedra would be brought into the world. After spending his childhood and early teen years in karts, Sebastian Saavedra would move to race in the Formula BMW USA Series and also make 2 starts in the Formula BMW ADAC Series. This is where one of the first red flags should have been thrown. At the Nürburgring round for the 2006 Formula BMW ADAC Series, a late battle between Sergio Perez and Saavedra for 7th place would result in contact between the two after Saavedra moved in the braking zone for turn 7. This is bad enough, right? But after the two made contact again when out-of-control Perez spun Saavedra, Sebastian did the only logical thing of mashing the gas and attempting vehicular homicide on Sergio. Thankfully, with the big headrests that the Formula BMW cars had, Checo was uninjured, but this is completely inexcusable. Drivers in the past have been banned for less blatant shit than this. I usually like to be positive and give drivers the benefit of the doubt because as a driver myself, I know that we can get pretty pissed off in the heat of the moment, but you have to have negative brain cells to even think about justifying this. Despite the Nürburgring incident, however, Saavedra would move up to regional Formula 3 in Europe, but mixed results would follow, forcing his hand into racing in the 2009 Indy Lights season for AFS Racing. Saavedra would win 2 races this year at Kansas and Toronto. With multiple other solid finishes, he would finish 3rd in the 2009 Indy Lights season behind J.R. Hildebrand and James Davidson. The next year with Brian Herta Autosport would be disappointing, dropping from 3rd to 8th in the standings and only getting 1 win. 2010 would also see Saavedra make his IndyCar debut with Brian Herta in the Indy 500. Saavedra would just barely make the field after Paul Tracy and Jay Howard would withdraw their times, but not improve. This remains as a Cinderella story as Saavedra was in the hospital at the time after suffering a crash that day. This joy would be short-lived, however, as in the race, Saavedra would crash once again and finish 23rd. Later in the 2010 season, Saavedra would race with Conquest Racing at the season finale at Homestead. This won't be amazing either, as he'd finish 16th, 1 lap down. 2011 would see Saavedra race full-time for Conquest Racing. The 2011 season would be pretty bad. In the 14 races he starred, he would only finish 9 times and get a best finish of 11th at Sao Paulo. Even more embarrassing was the fact that he failed to qualify for the Indy 500. The icing on top of the shit Sunday would come from the fact that his teammate, Pippa Mann, in her first IndyCar start ever, would qualify. Things got so bad that he was pulled from the car for the Twin Ring Motegi and Kentucky rounds. He would return to the series at the Las Vegas race, but of course we all know what happened there. The next year, Andretti Autosport would sign Saavedra, and all I have to say to this is, why? The guy was so bad that his old team kicked him out for 2 races, and for that he got a seat at Andretti? Thankfully, this would be a part-time effort for only 3 races, specifically Indy, Sonoma, and Auto Club. This season was pretty bad too. At Indy and Auto Club he would crash, and at Sonoma he would finish 15th. In Andretti Autosport equipment that won the championship that year. Yikes. The next year he would sign for Dragon Racing to be in the number 6 True Car Chevy, and oh boy, this season's bad. Like it's really bad. In the words of Anthony Fantano, it's not good. The St. Petersburg round would see him qualify 9th, but grip issues would drop him back. An audacious move on J.R. Hildebrand would put Hildebrand into the turn 10 wall. Ironically, Saavedra would crash in that exact same spot later on, ending a miserable St. Petersburg round. Another 9th place start in Barber wouldn't result in anything as he finished 20th. Long Beach, however, would be the most miserable round yet. This clip I'm about to show you is so bad that it doesn't even require suggestive commentary. The race was also like this too when he pulled off this galaxy brain move on Simona di Silvestro. The only time he showed any form of agility near a car was when he gave Marco Andretti the double middle finger at Detroit. Saavedra crashed out of 7 races in 2013. His best finish was 8th, but 7 DNFs. If it wasn't abundantly clear yet, Sebastian Saavedra didn't return to Dragon Racing in 2014. Along with him adjusting to new faces at KV Racing, he would also have to get acclimatized to the standing starts that IndyCar implemented for 2014. Now, you may remember one specific thing about Sebastian Saavedra, which we're going to get to in a bit. You may be thinking to yourself, but Ronnie, there's no way this can end well. And you'd be right. Of the 4 times the series used standing starts, he stalled twice. His only highlights of this year would be the Indy crash and 2 top 10s. When the lights went off that fateful spring day, Sebastian Saavedra was roughly 255 million seconds old. The next 10, however, would define his racing career. After another year of poor showings, Saavedra's career was effectively over. A career filled with dangerous moves, idiotic moments, and rare moments of brilliance is one of the reasons I place him in the top 3 worst IndyCar drivers of the 2010s, and why he's a solid mention for one of the worst ever. I'm sure off track Sebastian Saavedra is a nice dude, but on track he was a jackass most of the time. When I first suggested making this video, my dad was skeptical about me covering this man's career the way I have in this video. This series is meant to look at the good, bad, and ugly in IndyCar racing, and that's what I'll continue to do. The career of Sebastian Saavedra is one that should be talked about, because if we ignore history, we're doomed to repeat it.
Rushing tide.